In the last video, we learned how to move the paddles independent of each other. And now we're going to script the ball to be able to play like a Pong game. Okay, so the ball is going to move with physics. So we're going to need to add a rigid body 2D component. What this component does is adds physics to the object that it's assigned to. Right now, this is going to be a physics object. We press play, we're going to see that it's going to fall because, again, it's using physics. So what we need to do for the ball is to set the gravity to 0 so it doesn't fall when we press play, and we can add forces to it when we want it to move. Now if we press play, the gravity is scaling 0, the ball is not going to move. So like we learned in the last video, let's add some behavior to this ball. So let's delete this. Go to Bolt, Flow Machine. Let's create a new one. Go to Flow Machines. Call this ball. And let's edit the graph. Perfect. So what do we want this ball to do? We want it to start moving to the right when we press play. So like we learned in the last video, the start event gets called only once, so that's what we're going to use. If we want, we can delete the update one or leave it there, it's the same. So what we're going to do here is when it starts, we're going to do an add force to the rigid body 2D. We're going to use this method with the force and the mode. We'll see why in a second. So this is going to add a force to self. It means to this object, this rigid body. And let's set the force to 5 on the X and 0 in Y. So this should be moving to the right. We press play. Yep, we see it moves to the right, but super slow. That is because the mode we're using is force. This is a constant movement. We want to use impulse. This is going to be a burst. This is exactly what we need for this kind of game. So if we press play now, we're going to see a totally different behavior. There we go. Now the problem is that it's going through all of our objects. That's why, because we need to add colliders to our objects so they can collide with each other. So let's go to the ball first. Let's add a circle collider 2D. If you zoom in the ball, you will see this green outline. That's the actual collider. If you want to move it, if you want to make it bigger, you can just increase the radius or just make it smaller. We're going to leave it was, since it was kind of good, it's perfect. And then we need to do the same things to the paddles. So let's go to the paddles. And for this, we're going to add box colliders, since they're rectangular. Box colliders 2D. Remember that we're working in a 2D space, so everything needs to be 2D. If we want to resize the colliders, we can just click here. But that looks good. So it's not much we need to do there. You can just increase the colliders by grabbing the edges. That if we wanted to make them bigger, but we'll just leave it as is. So we added one to the right. Let's add one to the left. So again, box collider. Make sure that the size is okay. Perfect. So let's see what happens now. The ball should collide with the paddles. See? Perfect. It's colliding, but it's not bouncing. So to change that, we're going to go to Project. We're going to go to Assets. We're going to create new physics material 2D. Let's call this ball material. And if you look in the inspector, you have two variables, friction and bounciness. So for a Pong game, we want this to have 0 friction and 1 of bounciness. So full bounciness, no friction. I will just select the ball and drag this to the material. As you can see, it's a physics material 2D, exactly what we created. So now if we press play, the ball should bounce back and forth between the two paddles. Yep, looking good. Perfect. Now this is not a lot of fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to script the ball. So when it starts moving to the right, it also applies a random direction on Y. So to do that, let's move backwards from here. So we want to create a new vector 2. On X, we're going to leave 5. So it's always going to go to the right. But we want it to, the Y to be a random number between -3 and 3. So to do that, we go to add unit, write random range, and we need to look for the one with float. So this is the correct one. We put int, it's only going to be -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. But we want all numbers in between those whole numbers as well. So we're going to use float. And we're going to put -3, and 3. We'll put this in the Y. And then the result of this vector, that's going to be 5 on X, and a random number between -3 and 3 on the Y. It's going to be the force applied. Now if we press play, we'll see how the ball starts moving at an angle. There we go. Perfect. Now the ball's not colliding with the walls. We need to do the exact same thing we did before. So we'll go here, box collider 2D. You can see the green lines there perfectly. Now if we press play, the ball should be moving, and it's going to be colliding against the walls. We don't have any scoring system yet, but yep, this seems to be working. Now that we have the basic ball movement and paddle movement, we're going to work on the scoring system. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to select the left bound. We're going to go to tag, add tag. We're going to add 2 new tags. So this is going to be bounce left. And then we're going to assign it to here. Perfect. And the bounce right, we're going to do the same thing. Add tag, bounce right, save, and assign it here. So the logic that we're going to write is when the ball collides with an object that has a tag bounce right or bounce left, we're going to score a goal for one of the players. So let's go back to the ball we have here. So how do we know when a ball collides with something? We can add a new node. It's called on collision. You have on collision exit, stay, enter, and the same for 2D. So we want to know when a collision occurs in 2D. You can see here, call when an incoming collider makes contact with this object's collider. Perfect. This is going to add a new starting node. You see it's green because it means starting node. Let's do this full screen. Overview. There we go. Perfect. So this is going to have its own flow of execution. So when this gets triggered, this is going to be called. So when we collide with something, we first want to check if the tag, so let's do compare tag. So you have here the game object compare tag. So here we can write whatever we want. So let's put bounce left. And as an object, like on which object do we want to check if it has the bound left? In the object that we collided with. So remember we're in the ball right now. So when we collide with the wall, we want to check on the actual wall if it's a bounce left. Now let's do a branch here, so we can know if it's true or false. Connect this one here. So just to test this out, we're gonna do if it is a bounce left. So we go here. We're just gonna use a debug.log message. And as a message, we're going to add just a string. So it's going to be a string literal. There we go. So collided, and just tag it here. So just to recap, every time the ball collides with something, it's going to check if it has the tag bounce left. And if it does, it's going to write in the console, we'll see where it shows up in a minute, a message called collided. So let's give this a try. Here we can open up the console, clear it up, and when it gets to the left bound, collided. Perfect. So every time that the ball collides with the left bound, we're going to see that message. Instead of writing a message to the console, we're going to delete these two nodes because we're not going to need them anymore. We're going to increment the score of the right player if the ball touches the left bound. So for the score, we're going to use a type of variable that's called saved. As you can see here, the saved variables, these variables will persist even after the application quits. So this is good for us. So here in initial, we're going to put score left. It's going to be of type int, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. starting with 0. And let's say score right, type int, also in 0. So let's go full screen here. Okay, so if we collide with the bounce left, and this is true, what we want to do is actually set a variable. So set variable saved. We're going to choose the score right, because if we touch the left bound, it means the right one scored. And we need to assign a value here, an int. So to do that, we need to get the actual value that we have already saved. So get variable, save variable, or score right. We're going to add 1 to it and hook it here. So every time it collides with the bounce left, and that's true, it's going to take the score right saved amount, add 1 to it, and then save it in the same score right. So we can see how that works right here. Let's press play. And if we go to variables saved, you can see once it touches the left, score right increase by 1, 2, and so on. If we remove play, this will persist. That's great. If we want to reset this, we can just go here to 0. What we're going to do now is we're going to duplicate this behavior to the other side. So again, let's copy all this and paste it here. And turn this. Now this is going to be bounce right and be scored left. Or left. So the flow of execution is going to branch off here, exactly like we did with the paddles. And for we need to also pass the collider, so we can actually do this. The same collider goes to both sides. Let's see how this works now. Now both scores should increase once the back of the level gets touched by the ball. So saved again. Score left 1, score right 1, 2, 2. Perfect. Now what we're going to do to make this look more real, we're going to add at the end of this, we're going to do load scene. And here put whichever name you saved your scene with. Mine is main scene. And just take a look here. The name you have here is the one you have to put here. And we can connect both of these there. So after the score variable is set, just load the scene again. So the game starts a new one. Try this out now. So it goes 3, 4, 5, 5, 3. Great. Now let's add a simple scoreboard to our game. So to do that, we're going to go to Game Object, UI, Text / Text Message Pro. If this is the first time we're using it, we need to import the TMP Essentials. Let's click there. Perfect. Once that's finished, we can already see the text here. So let's rename this for left. Put it 0. We can just move this wherever we want. Just put it there. Let's do for right. And we'll just drag this to the other side. Perfect. Okay, so now let's create on the canvas. It's going to be the parent of all the graphics elements. Let's create a new bolt flow machine. Let's call this scoreboard. Sorry, not variables. New flow machine scoreboard. Perfect. What we need to do before we use Text Mesh Pro in our game, we need to go to Tools, Bolt, Unit Options Wizard. We need to scroll down here, add a new one, and select Unity Text Mesh Pro, and click Next, and Generate. So this will generate all of the elements that we need from Text Mesh to be used in our flow machines. Let's wait here for a second. Okay, once this is finished, let's open up our scoreboard graph. So again, we're gonna just need to do this once we start the level. So let's delete the update one. So for our game, we're gonna need 2 variables. Do it here. Sorry. Let's put for text left. This is going to be of type text mesh pro GUI. We're gonna drag for left label, so it's going to be this element, and then we're going to go for text right, same type, text mesh pro GUI, and select for right. Okay, so what we want to do now on this flow chart, when we begin, we want to set the text. We go to set text. Perfect. We want to set the text of which element. Here we need to get variable, object variable. I'm going to select score text left. Look at here. We want to set, when we start, we want to set the text of the score left, this one. Now we need another variable to get variable. This is going to be a saved one. We want the for left to be shown there. Perfect. Now if we copy all of this, you can do right after. Go here, do the same thing with score right. Okay, let's save everything. Let's see how this goes. So we get an error here. I think I'm using the wrong. This is how it looks when you have an error. If you go to the console, you can see Now convert single to string. So what's going on here is our variable is a number, and here we need a string, a text. So we need to actually remove this here and do a toString. What this does is actually takes a number and converts it to a string. So we'll just put this here, do the same thing here. And we should be good now. Let's reset the variables to 0 in case. Okay. Let's see if this works now. Yep, 1 0, 1 1. Okay, seems to be working great. To wrap this video up, I'm gonna change a little bit how the game looks. I have some files here in my art folder that I'm going to be uploading and leaving the link in the description. So go to game object 2D, right? Create a background element. Let's assign the background and use any image you want. Let's just put this in 0 0 0. Perfect. Center on it. Let's just make this bigger. See how big. We want to do it like 4 4. Okay, that looks good. Let's replace the image of the ball. So we're going to just select the ball and this. Now you can see that you can't see the ball anymore. This is because the order of the ball on the layer is in order 0. So is the background. So if they're fighting for the same order, whichever unit you want is going to be on front. So to make sure the background is always in the back, put -1. Then we can see the ball. Perfect. And then let's select the paddles, both of them. Change the image. Now you can see that the scale went way off because this image is much bigger than the 1 by 1 pixel that we had. So we need to adjust the size. For this, we need to do it 2.5, 2.5, roughly the same. Now our colliders are going to be way too small. As you can see, it's right there. We need to make them bigger. You can play with these numbers to find what works. So something like that. And then that looks good. So let's round this up. So 0.25, 7. And as we said the last time, we can just copy these values and paste them here. Values. We check the left paddle. Okay, that's great. We can also change the color of the text. We select the elements, and select both of them. Open up here in vertex color. Just look at whichever color you want. Let's do something like that. Kind of match paddles. Now just to clean this up a little bit, we're gonna make the bounds a little bit thinner. Just do this 15. Just move this a little bit to the left. There we go. Do the same to the right. And to the one on top and bottom. Okay. Copy this here. 15. Okay, we have a much cleaner game now. This wraps up the first tutorial series on how to make a Pong game without any code. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, drop a line in the comments. Thank you, bye.